Well, it's going to be a bit tricky to do this, but this is my handbrake cable off of the MG. I dare say it's the original. It's in two sections via this bracket here. Two sections via this bracket. So that bracket pivots. One side is the cable, and the other side goes to the other drum. So what we have here is that the cable is seized inside the outer cable. It will move, but it's very tight. So what we need to do is basically give it a good clean up, and hopefully this will work again. So I reassembled the cable, and the handbrake now works, and the drums are just awaiting adjustment. So if I pull the handbrake on like that, you can see that that still moves perfectly freely. I have to give it some more pressure. But there we go, that is now solid as a rock. And then if I take the handbrake off, like that, you can see it runs. The driver's seat did have to come out to do this. I don't know if I can't remember if I mentioned that, because I've been doing odd jobs here and there, and it's had to come out, and I'm not going to put it back in yet because we've got work to do on the wheel arch. So next job is to put the clutch master cylinder back together. I've sprayed it up. It is exactly the same as one fitted to a classic Range Rover. I've done myself a drawing. So we have the outer arm, the plunger and the spring, and the way it goes in is like this. So spring, big end first. Yeah, just make sure there's no final bits of crap on it. Big end first, and then followed by the seal, which is this seal. Like so. Then there is a washer or a shim. Goes in afterwards. Yeah, that's gone in. And then finally the plunger, which is this bit. The new seal is already in place. Obviously, where are we? Obviously that end goes to the outside, so again, just make sure there's no rubbish on there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get some .3 brake fluid. Some .3 brake fluid on my finger, and then just smear this around. I should have done that with the other one actually, and it will help it feed in. So that's going to go through there like so. Just quite a tight fit. Right, and then that's in place. I'll tighten this back up. And then the last job is the tricky bit, because I've got to get the plunger and the circlip on. But first I'm just going to put a tap of grease on the end of that. I'm going to use copper grease for this bit. So this is where the fun starts. I've got to get that in there. There's also a washer on here that I've got to work in as well. Get my circlip pliers. I love circlips, I do. It's not quite in yet, but it's as near as makes no difference in. There we go. Right, just wants a bit of fettling, but that is now done. So it's all back in place now. I'm just going to bleed the system. Painted it up nicely, as you've probably already guessed, but I've already spilt some, so that is now irrelevant. Just another thing to say, behind the clutch master cylinder, brake master cylinder, there is a window in the bulkhead which is blanked off with a rubber gasket, and if you take that out, obviously it makes life so much easier for you to get this back in. So what I'm going to do next is I've opened the bleed nipple at the bottom, and I'm going to press the pedal a couple of times and then self-bleed it using gravity. My clutch problem is still just as bad, even after changing even after replacing the seals inside the master cylinder. So I've taken the slave cylinder off, and this is it. I'm just cleaning all the rubbish off a bit, so it looks quite shiny underneath. It's a good sign. The clutch is just as bad as what it was before we changed the seals in the master cylinder. So I have a feeling that it's the flexi pipe that might be the problem, but while we're at it, we may as well change the seals in this, then it's all done then. We can't potentially go wrong. So I've now cleaned the slave cylinder up. It's not the best, I know, but I've not finished it yet. That is the outer rubber seal, and it's held on with this steel retaining ring. If I give this a tap, then the piston should come out of there, like that. That is the piston, and this is the rubber seal. There is a spring in here, but obviously the suction is stopping it from coming out. Followed by the spring. So this is clearly the original seal because it still says Lockheed on the inside of it. I need to remember that that goes in that way round with that in there, like so. So I've struggled down here this afternoon. I've had to remove the starter motor all to get at this flexi pipe, which is here. I've had the angle grinder, I've had the burner, I've had everything to try and get the original one off. In fact, you can't see the flexi pipe because of that wire. I had to remove the starter motor to gain access to it, and you can see the grind marks where I've cut through the bracket there to get the original one off, but it's all back in place now. The pipe is bolted up at the end, and I'm just in the position of wiring the starter motor back up. So I need to take that nut off of there, put it somewhere safe, because that would be a really stupid thing to lose that at this stage. And just feed these wires around here, and the red and white goes on the side. I'm not watching the camera, so it could be pointed at something completely different. And then these two obviously go onto the end of the solenoid like that. Well, that one doesn't seem to want to go on fully, and this is why I don't normally video with a one hand like this, because it really is a struggle. Right, nut. That one just goes onto there like that, and then that's it. Should all be now back wired up together. But that really was a struggle. I've not filmed much of it because the air was blue, because there is not a lot of space there at all. It might look quite big on the camera, but when you consider that when I get my hand up here, that there really isn't a lot of space at all. That has taken 5.5 hours, including a 1 hour lunch. And what that is now all back together and fitted. I just need to put a split pin back through that pin, which I found I didn't actually have to take off. Yeah, so I'll do that now. Everything's bolted back on, all the wiring's back on. It's currently just bleeding up. We should just about have it. Looking for a spin in a minute. So I've now fitted the new brake caliper to the MG. This is a job that now needs bleeding. The pads are only in provisionally. They need the new spring clip because the old one was completely rotten. The caliper now needs bleeding. So what we're going to do, I'm going to use this orange tube and a bucket, and this should theoretically allow me to bleed the brakes on my own. If you look, it's capped off one side and not the other, and there's also a split in the pipe at the end. It's that fine that you can't actually see it, and this should, you can just see it there, this should allow us to be able to bleed the brakes on his own. So I've now topped the reservoir up and put a bucket with the pipe going into. Right, so the bleeding nipple's cracked off. Get in the car. See what happens. Got quite tight on the pedal, so I'm going to tighten the bleed nipple. I did put some copper grease on that bleed nipple before I started, just to make it easier to come off next time. So this pedal should now be straight to the floor. If anything, that needs just a bit more air out of it.